I never understood what's so joyous about the holiday of Sukkot. I mean, it is the subtitle, it's the festival of our rejoicing, and that's very nice, but what exactly are we celebrating? The Torah tells us a strange answer, because we dwelled in Sukkot, which means little flimsy huts, when we left Egypt. So let me get this straight. Passover, which celebrates the Exodus, does not have this level of rejoicing to it. In fact, for most of Passover, we don't even say the entire Hallel Psalms of praise. We skip some sections. But on Sukkot, we say the full Hallel Psalms each and every day. So celebrating the actual Exodus with the 10 plagues and the miracle of the splitting of the sea gets a relatively muted measure of joy, while commemorating the little huts we lived in afterwards warrants a full-blown shindig? How does that make sense? I mean, maybe it's that all those open miracles are nice and God did some cool stuff at the sea, but the most impressive thing was getting the Jews to agree to eat and sleep in a little flimsy hut. That's an accomplishment. All kidding aside, a second question. The timing of Sukkot seems to be all off. When did we start dwelling in those huts? The day after we left Egypt. So think about how this should have been arranged. At night, we would have a Seder in our home, as we do. But by the next day, we should move everything out into the sukkah. Imagine that. If you thought preparing for Passover was hard, this is off the charts. Now, a third question. The most common reason given for reciting the complete Hallel on every day of Sukkot, in distinction to Passover, is that the festival sacrifice in the temple was slightly different each day. Passover, we only recite the abbreviated Hallel because from the second day on, it was the same exact offering. But on Sukkot, the quantity of cows goes down by 1. We bring 13 cows on the first day, 12 on the second, 11 on the third, all the way down to 7 on the final day of Sukkot. So for the fact that each day has 1 less cow, we have extra rejoicing and we call each day its own mini holiday? Seriously? Now, I will say that if you count the total number of cows brought, 13 plus 12 plus 11 down to 7, you will arrive at a total of 70. And that's a highly significant number. We shall see. So let us summarize our questions. Why are these little huts exponentially more joy-inducing than the sea splitting and the 10 plagues? And why is it taking place 6 months after the fact? And what is so important about the change in the number of cows brought on each day of Sukkot in the temple that adds to the joy? Let's deal with the timing question first, for which a number of good reasons are given. The most popular one is that God wanted it to be obvious that we were going out to the sukkah because of His commandment to do so, and not because of the nice weather. Had Sukkot been in the spring, people would have simply said, oh, the Jews are going out to enjoy the warming temperatures. So instead, we go out when it starts to get really chilly in October. This explanation, to be honest, also doesn't impress me, because is what people think the only reason for celebrating 6 months late? No, I think it may actually be so, but there are other reasons as well. I'd like to suggest one of my own, that it's related to the other Sukkot ritual, the 4 species, also known as the lulav and etrog. I believe there is a deep connection between the sukkah and these 4 species, the lulav, the etrog, the hadassim, and the aravos, 4 plants that we pick up and we shake in the synagogue. That's also a ritual of Sukkot, and it must be done at the same time as the sukkah dwelling mitzvah, commandment. And considering that the springtime is not when those 4 species are readily available, it's early in the season, rather they come in for the autumn harvest, so the whole festival had to be scheduled for then so we could do everything. So what do all these things mean? What is the key that unlocks all of these mysteries? I believe it's simple. It is Israel, the nations of the world, and the redemption of humanity, no less. The psalmist says, B'shuvat shemesh shivat Zion, when God brings back the remnant of Zion, when the redemption comes, we shall be like dreamers. Then shall our mouths be filled with laughter and our tongues with song. In other words, the ultimate joy is the redemption of the Jewish nation and by extension of the whole world, when nations will not learn war and they will beat their swords into plowshares. There is no joy to equal that, and it will be perfect, as if in a dream. If you look at the liturgy of the festival of Sukkot, the messianic themes of this festival flow through the various prophetic readings that we have in synagogue and much of the synagogue poetry unique to this time. That is the engine of rejoicing of the Sukkot festival. What we are doing is celebrating the commencement of the journey towards that redemption, symbolized by the Israelites traveling through the wilderness and dwelling in Sukkot, in flimsy huts. And when is it clear that we're going out on a journey? In the autumn, when the weather should send us indoors, not outdoors. And a major component of that journey is the relationship between Israel and the nations of the world. They take center stage in this festival. The 4 species represent the nation of Israel. There are some of the things we take have fragrance but no taste, or taste but no fragrance. Various levels of commitment, those who have good deeds and Torah, those who don't have either, or one and not the other. But nonetheless, we are the nation of Israel. We must come together. We hold them in our hands. We embrace them in unity, and we shake them in every direction. Through thick and through thin, the nation of Israel must stick together on all of history's roads. And the sukkah represents our relationship to the outside world. We must have walls to prevent assimilation, yes, but the roof must be open to the stars. We do not lock ourselves inside our own houses, but go out on our historic march throughout the world to bring God into it. The rabbis teach us something fascinating, that the divine name is present in the sukkah. What does that mean? What is the significance of that divine name? Now, anytime Jews perform a commandment or study Torah, there is a sense of divinity there. So how is the sukkah different? What is this divine name adding? The verse says in the book of Deuteronomy, "The nations of the world shall see that the name of God is called upon you, and they shall fear you." Think about it. When we dwell in our houses, we are always a little nervous. We are careful to lock our doors, make sure that nobody can pry open a window or otherwise gain entry to cause us harm. But then comes Sukkot, and what do? We go out and eat and sleep in the flimsiest of structures. No locks, no alarms. What are we doing? We are anticipating that glorious time of the redemption. And even now, as we embark on the journey, we know that the divine name is on the sukkah. And just like Moses said in Deuteronomy, the nations of the world shall fear us when they see that the divine name is called upon us. We are in the safest place in the sukkah, because the sukkah is a taste of the future era of redemption. So what about the cows? We bring 70 cows in descending order from 13 to 7. Why? Because the total comes to 70. And the number 70 represents the nations of the world. Yes, Israel does bring sacrifices on behalf of all of humanity on this, the most joyous of festivals. Now you may have noticed that the number of cows is in decreasing order. That's part of the joy. We could have done 10 cows for 7 days and gotten to the same total, but no. Why the decreasing order? Because that shows the slow and steady march of humanity towards godliness, towards unity. Because conquest and violent force may be strong at the beginning, but with perseverance and faith, that power of the hatred will diminish until it is gone. Each day is one cow closer to the redemption, is one step forward in man for mankind, up till the number 7, which represents godliness, as in the Sabbath, the sabbatical year, and other instances. When that number 7 becomes the unifying number of all of humanity. In the future, the lion shall lie down with the lamb, nations will beat their swords into plowshares, and no longer teach war. Now, I think there's one more element about the timing, and why we don't do Sukkot at Passover. Because we got off to a rocky start after Passover. Yes, we made it to Mount Sinai and received the Torah, but then we mucked up by doing a golden calf. Only on Yom Kippur was that sin forgiven, and a new set of 10 Commandments tablets given to us by Moses. So only after Yom Kippur does our redemptive journey begin in earnest. So this festival of joy is not just about Jews agreeing to eat and sleep in a flimsy hut. It's about the redemption of the world. It's about Israel and the nations coming together in the service of God. It's about the end of all wars and the celebration of the holiness of life. It's about the nation of Israel hugging each other and God hugging us through the Sukkah with his holy name upon it. A joyous Sukkot to one and all.